wherever you are. So I have been coming to Cameroon. I don't feel that disconnect that you alluded to. That said, I also watched the CPDM Congress, and to tell you, I wasn't that impressed, especially for one reason, and I will just be very frank with you. Okay. After the president's speech, the next item on the agenda was the messages of support and encouragement from friendly parties, parties from friendly countries. And I was struck, first of all, that the first political party that was called to the podium was the Communist Party of China. I don't know how many young CPDM members or militants identify with the Communist Party of China. Then they called the ruling party in Gabon, which is fine. And then they called the ruling party in Equatorial Guinea. And then they called the ruling party in Chad. And the list ended.
Okay.
And
who would you have wanted to see?
But as a Cameroonian, even if as far away as I am from the CPDM, as a Cameroonian, should I expect that the ruling party of my country should have only 4 friendly parties in the whole world? The first one being the Communist Party of China.
Doctor, I remember asking
for me, I
you,
thought that was a real statement.
Since we're talking about countries, some of whom are friends to Cameroon, a high-profile delegation from the United States Special Operations Department at the Africa Command, or AFRICOM, that's in Stuttgart in Germany, is currently in Cameroon to assess the level of evolution of military cooperation ties between both countries. Watch this. The United States of America is apparently unrelenting in its determination to help Cameroon drive away pirates from its territorial waters. A high-profile 6-man delegation from the Germany-based Africa Command, or AFRICOM, is in the country to evaluate the evolution of cooperation in that regard. After Yaoundé, the mission, headed by Admiral Brian Lossey from the U.S. Special Operations at AFRICOM, was in Douala Thursday. In quick succession, the august guests made 2 stopovers, first at the 2nd Combined Military Region, where they held private discussions with General Sali Mohamedou before heading for the Douala headquarters of the Rapid Intervention Battalion, OB, where closed-door talks were followed by an inspection of installations and equipment, some donated by the United States.
Really is to assess our working relationship, to continue to build on what has been an effective partnership to this point. Today we received very impressive briefings and demonstrations regarding the beer, the operational results that they have achieved in a fairly short time.
According to General Sali, Cameroon has been benefiting enormously from the ramped-up military ties with the United States and can only wish that they are consolidated, a desire embraced by the visiting experts.
Our interests are common, the common interest of security and stability in the region, and the development of commerce and the flow of commerce, and all that's tied, of course, and obscured by piracy. So that's what we work on together.
From Douala, the mission headed off for the Rapid Intervention Battalion base in Manowo Bay in Limbe on Cameroon's southwestern shores of the Atlantic Ocean. The experts will spend a couple of days pinpointing areas requiring more intervention. Thanks once again for staying with us. In a couple of minutes, we'll be pulling down the curtains, but more questions and more questions for Doctor. You are hard to get guest, so once we can get you in our traps, we'll exhaust the bag of questions that we have. One more question, Doctor, is what, according to you, explains the apparent, that's my point of view, demise of the opposition in Cameroon?
Well, I think opposition parties are pretty fragmented, which is very unfortunate. But you see, I also don't want us to get into this culture of blaming the victim, because a lot of the opposition parties will tell you that they are operating in a very difficult political environment. Okay. Some of the parties have been weakened by actions of the state or of the ruling party, and others because some of the personalities haven't been open to broaden the base of support. So I think that we're in a catch-22 as a country. Okay. We need to create an environment that can allow political parties to blossom and political activism to really be fostered. And if we do that and we put in place systems that encourage political parties and also hold them accountable for the way they manage, so that there's internal democracy within the political parties, then obviously the strong parties would emerge, and we'll have parties that have a national base. Unfortunately, at the current state of affairs, it's not the case, and some of the things that have happened in the lead up to this election have really heightened my fears that at this rate, sooner or later, we may really not have political parties that function as genuine political parties.
So what next, Doctor? The next elections, I mean, if the Constitution stays untouched, is 2018.
Yeah, I think that...
Are you planning on, running again?
Well, I think...
If the frameworks are arranged to meet your desires?
Well, it's not really arranging the frameworks to meet my desires. It's arranging the framework to create an environment for the possibility of a fair competition. Not just for me, but for the 20 million of other Cameroonians who want to participate actively in the politics of our country. I think 7 years is an extremely long time. We have to acknowledge that we live in a world that is moving rather rapidly. We're seeing developments in other countries across the continent, and I am convinced that we're going to see positive change in this country in the next few years. And I really intend, for all intents and purposes, to make my contribution in that regard.
Thank you, good people, for staying on with us. We finally pull the curtains on this other edition of Roundup. Join us next week, and remember, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. Shalom.